coming back here, we're going to go and look at what Schaefer-Landau has to say about the attractions and the difficulties with utilitarianism. So let's, and then shift to Kant, or the Kantian perspective. So here's where we kind of left off in a couple classes ago, the attractions of the theory. And I've shared this slideshow with you, so you can go through this on your own. On page 131, 132 in chapter 10, Schaefer-Landau talks about the idea of impartiality. So one of the reasons to think that utilitarianism is a good theory, is an attractive theory, is that it reflects our intuitions about impartiality, right? And what is impartiality? Here's an image of justice, right? The Lady Justice holding the scales. When you go to a court of law, right, and you stand before a jury or before a judge, right, the expectation is that the jury and the judge will be impartial. Okay, that they will decide your case impartially, meaning they will treat your welfare as having equal value to the welfare of everyone else. The judge will not give preferential treatment to one person over another. The jury will not give preferential treatment to one lawyer over another, who's, to the defense lawyer over the prosecution. That they will hear the case impartially. So that's a model of impartiality, what happens in a court of law. But that's just one model, right? From the intuitive perspective of what morality is about, we tend to think that the more impartial you are, the more moral you are, or the more impartial your action is, right? The more moral your action is, or the greater moral value it has, right? So that we've done something wrong when we've acted impartially. When we treat one group's welfare as having greater value than another. Right, so notice that many different forms of wrong can be understood as failures of impartiality. Discrimination, racial discrimination, gender discrimination, all types of discrimination involve, treating one group's welfare as having a greater value than another's. And so utilitarianism seems to reflect the value of impartiality and the idea that morality, from a moral point of view, we ought to be impartial. We ought to act in such a way that we are treating each person's welfare on an equal level, or as having equal value. Okay, so that's one attraction of the theory, or one reason for thinking that utilitarianism is a good moral theory. It's an impartial theory. Secondly, it seems to justify our conventional moral wisdom, right? And this, for many, is a good thing about utilitarianism. Here's a picture of moral foundations. We have a lot of conventional views about the value of loyalty and respect and fairness and caring for each other. Certain things certain things have sanctity. That's an interesting misspelling. I didn't notice that. Anyway, right. So these are ideas that kind of reflect our conventional moral wisdom. These are good things. These are things that have moral value. And utilitarianism seems to justify our conventional wisdom about the moral life, or seems to explain why we have our deeply held moral beliefs and why they're correct, right? In essence, right, the argument is, loyalty has moral value because loyalty promotes more happiness for more people. Same thing with respect and fairness, right? All of these things that we value from a moral point of view, right, can be explained by the utilitarian. They promote greater happiness for the greater number. It also seems to be a good theory in the sense that it helps us resolve conflicts between different values. So I've given you a list so it gives us a clear method for resolving moral conflicts. That's something a moral theory should be able to do. We face conflicts of value in many contexts of our lives, right? Political contexts, personal contexts, at work, in the workplace, you're always going to face a conflict between different values. And a good moral theory will give you a way of resolving those conflicts. So again, this is something that Schaefer-Landau talks about on page 133, 134. But what I've given you on this slide are some examples of what a value conflict looks like. It generates a kind of controversy. Loyalty is something we value. So is honesty, right? And so sometimes, right, you have a commitment to your sister. You want to be loyal to your sister. You find out that she's been taking drugs, and you feel like, I also need to be honest with my parents, right? Honesty is also something I value. Well, should I tell my parents about my sister's drug habit? Okay, there's a conflict there between values. So the utilitarian provides a kind of method for resolving the conflict, right? Would telling the truth to your parents, right, promote more happiness for everyone involved? That includes you, your sister, your parents, your sister's friends, everyone involved who would be affected by your decision to tell the truth, right? Would that promote more happiness for more people? Or would it be better to conceal the truth from your parents, right? That would protect your bond of loyalty with your sister, right? But the question from a utilitarian point of view is, both are valuable. Loyalty and honesty are both valuable, but in this context, which decision would promote more happiness for more people? And so I might, depending on how I calculated the results of my decision, right, it may be that I should do the loyal thing from a utilitarian perspective and not tell my parents what my sister is doing. Or maybe the calculation yields the conclusion that I should do the honest thing, right, and sacrifice loyalty for the sake of honesty. Okay, so this is a list of different types of conflicts that a person can face, and the point is that utilitarianism provides us with a method for resolving those conflicts. Okay, you can look at this slide on your own for other examples, or come up with examples of your own. Another thing that people say in defense of the utilitarian approach is that it's flexible, and the implication there is that flexibility is a good thing when it comes to morality. Right? We find ourselves in ambiguous situations, facing real moral conflicts. And while we can think of morality as having to do with rules to live by, those rules should be thought of as rules of thumb, right? Not as absolute rules. To say that something is a rule of thumb is to say that there are exceptions to it. There are legitimate exceptions to the rule. And so sometimes we get to bend or break the rules. Why? For the sake of promoting more utility. And sometimes the rule, while it is a good rule in general, in specific cases, following the rule would do more harm than good. And so we get to bend or break the rule. Okay, so the implication here is that no moral rules are absolute. I have a picture of Batman here. I mean, and this is a utilitarian idea, right? That no moral rules are absolute. All rules are simply rules of thumb. That any rule can be broken or bent in specific circumstances to promote the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people. That's a picture of Batman there, right? I don't know what you think of Batman and the superhero stories, but Batman is clearly someone who, does things that under normal circumstances we would think are wrong, but he does them to promote justice in Gotham, right? Or to promote, the well-being of others in Gotham, right? Or to enact revenge. I don't know what you think of Batman, right? But he does things that under normal circumstances we would think of as wrong, but he bends the rules for the sake of protecting the people of Gotham, or protecting specific people, or promoting more happiness for more people. At least you could argue that about Batman. Maybe that's, think of your own examples of moral flexibility. Is moral flexibility a good thing or a bad thing, right? The utilitarian wants to say moral flexibility is a good thing. And if so, that's one way of sort of defending the position. However, notice that if you think that moral flexibility is a bad thing, right, that some rules should never be broken, that becomes a problem for utilitarianism, not an attraction of the view. Okay, here's another important point that Schaefer-Landau makes, and this is a more complicated point, that the utilitarian widens the scope of the moral community. Here I have a picture of pigs. From a utilitarian point of view, right, what gives someone moral status in the sense, like what it means to say that a being has, matters from a moral point of view, and that I have responsibilities to that being from a moral point of view, right? What does it mean to say that? Well, for the utilitarian, it means that that being is capable of suffering, is capable of pain. Pain is bad, suffering is bad, so we have a responsibility to minimize it, or to promote more pleasure for more beings, right? Now, notice that suggests that the pig, while maybe not a full-blooded person, the pig, since the pig is capable of pain and pleasure, the pig matters from a moral point of view. The pig is part of the moral community. There's many things a pig can't do that human beings can do, but there's one thing the pig can do. The pig can experience the world in such a way that it causes the pig pleasure and pain, right? The pig's quality of life can go up and down, right, depending on how much pleasure and pain it experiences. And that is something that we impact with our choices. Pig farms can be more or less humane in the sense they can promote more or less pig utility. Obviously, the fact that we eat pigs is a potential moral problem from a utilitarian perspective. Why? Because it causes unnecessary death, unnecessary suffering to pigs. But even if we believe that we can justify the practice of eating meat, still, from a utilitarian perspective, we have a responsibility to do that in a way that causes the least amount of pain. And so many pig farms, factory pig farms, are structured in such a way to make the greatest amount of profit for the pig farmer without any consideration for the well-being of the pig. Okay, so notice that utilitarianism has then a way of widening the scope of the moral community and explaining why we have responsibilities to non-human animals, why we should, and what those responsibilities are. We have responsibility to promote the well-being of any animal that can experience pleasure and pain. Okay. So if you're an environmentalist, or you think that animals have rights, or that animals that ought to be treated, given equal consideration, then utilitarianism is an approach to morality that would explain why. So that would be one way